on the one hand, they use the pretext to justify attacking Iran because Iran tried to kill the president, which they didn't. I mean, that's another damn lie. And then we turn around and talk just openly about killing any leader, any president we want. So which is it? Is it wrong, or is it just depends on who's doing it? This Trump's increasingly erratic behavior over the course of the last week and a half since the start of this war is alarming. Personally, I think that they need to invoke the 25th Amendment. He needs to be removed because he's saying delusional stuff like that. The United States gets to have a say in who the leader of Iran is. I mean, we'll give Trump credit. At least he's being upfront about what we've been doing for the last, 73 years. In terms of installing, removing people, putting in the people we want, trying to control the situation. But it's still wrong.
Larry, do you feel that the war of attrition has started, or we are still in the in the initial phase of the conflict? We don't know if it would be a war of attrition or not. How do you see the battlefield right now? Because as we see Iran, Tehran, they were attacking Tehran, many bombings in Tehran, in Israel as well. We see not that much of footage coming out of Israel, but from what we've heard so far, that the devastation is happening on both sides. And what is the battlefield, and what is the plan on the part of? We had Secretary of War, not Defense anymore, Pete Hegseth on 60 Minutes. What is your understanding of the head of Pentagon, of Donald Trump right now?
Well, there is no clear strategy. So they're just riffing like a jazz musician, only a bad jazz musician. Let's look at the difference between Iran and Israel. So Iran, you got 91 million people. The largest city is Tehran with between 10 and 12 million, depending upon who you're talking to, what the source is. But Iran, beyond that, just does not have a lot of cities that are with populations greater than a million, correct?
Yeah.
So you've got the rest of, let's say, the rest of the 80, 75 million people they're spread out around the country. They're not concentrated in one area.
Larry, when it comes to, let me say something, because it happens a lot on this podcast. Many people are arguing that when they're talking about various ethnicities in Iran, they say Kurd, Arabs, Azeri, Lur. Basically, all these Lur, Bakhtiyari, Lur, all of them, they consider themselves as Persian. They don't consider them as a different ethnicity in Iran.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, and then on top of that, but the majority of the population, 61% of Iran is actually Persian. And I think another 19% are Azeri. And as you've noted before, the Ayatollah Khamenei and the new Ayatollah Mujtaba Khamenei are Azeri. So, it's not like this, they are some distinct outsiders, not in sync with the Persian culture. But my point is that if the United States, the goal with military attacks is to try to affect as much of the population as possible, and the fact that 70%, 80% of the Iranian population are scattered across the country. In Israel, you've got 75% of the population, maybe it's closer to 80, concentrated in Tel Aviv and Haifa. So as opposed to the West having to attack literally hundreds of different targets in an effort to sap the will of the Iranian people, Iran's only got to hit two. And they've been doing that repeatedly, day after day after day. And the Israelis are suffering. They're sending signals. They want a ceasefire, and they're not going to get a ceasefire this time. Last June, during the 12-day war, at the end, Iran was willing to entertain a ceasefire because they had got indications from the United States that the U.S. would be serious about negotiations going forward. Turns out the U.S. lied again, and that's why as this continues, the war of attrition started this last week. Nobody would have imagined that Iran would take out those 5 radars, the TSP and the FPS. They're both, one of them costs $500 million, and the other one costs over $1 billion. And I think at least 2 of the TSP, they call them Tipsy, were taken out, and 3 of the other, the FPS, were taken out. Well, that has blinded both the United States and Israel. In the past, Israel would have like a 30-minute warning that, hey, inbound missiles. Not now. They're getting warning, a minute warning before it hits. So the United States has been attrited effectively of its radar capability, which then affects its other, military operations, at least on the defensive side of the house. And then they can no longer operate in the bases. They counted on having a presence in the Persian Gulf, in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Qatar, and even in the United Arab Emirates. That's becoming untenable. And the shutdown of the Persian Gulf to maritime traffic means that the ability of Saudi Arabia, but particularly Qatar and United Arab Emirates, to continue living as normal that's over. They're facing severe shortages of food within a week, shortages of water potentially, because of the attack that took place on the Iranian desalination plant. Iran has vowed that it's going to respond in kind, just as Iran warned, don't attack our oil facilities. What do? The United States attacked Iran, or I guess it was Israel that attacked the oil facility, and in retaliation, Iran has now hit the oil facilities in Bahrain and Kuwait, and so that's going to compound the problem that the world faces of an oil shortage. And then today, the United States has doubled down and making it an even bigger problem. They've gone after Iranian oil tankers. I've heard it's now 3, and blown them up or sinking them. Now, apart from the environmental damage that's going to cause, that takes more oil off the market. So we're going to be in a full-blown economic crisis, global economic crisis. We've got historical evidence from the Yom Kippur War in 1973, and then the Russia's attack on Ukraine in February 2022, the start of the special military operation. In both occasions, the price of oil spiked quite high, but then it came down. But when it spiked high in those occasions, the oil was still being pumped from the ground. The oil was still being loaded on ships. The ships were still able to sail out of the Persian Gulf. Not now. That's now completely changed. There's nothing. They're shutting down the pumping because they can only store so much, and then once their storage tanks are full, then they just got to shut the actual pumps down. But there's nothing coming out of the Persian Gulf. I mean, so 21% that you were counting on, poof, gone. And that's really created some interesting dynamics. This is helping Russia tremendously, I mean, Russia is economy is just going to be booming with this bonus money that's coming its way. India is in trouble, and Modi foolishly thought I don't know what he was thinking, but he decided it was going to be a great idea to go to Israel and put his lips firmly on the rear end, the butt of Prime Minister Netanyahu, and sucking up to them, bowing and scraping like some house servant. We'll call him the House Indian. Clap your hands, wiper, come here. He signed these number of agreements and cooperation and great friendship. And then when the attack came on Iran, didn't say a damn word, not one word. But now realize, oh my God, 80% of our oil comes out of the Persian Gulf. What are we going to do? In the past, India played this game where they tell the United States, oh, we're going to stop buying Russian oil. And then they'd go behind the back and tell the Russians, hey, we're under these sanctions, but we'll buy your oil, but you got to give us a discount. And so Russia said, okay, we'll give you a discount. Well, this time, now after going in and just making a complete obsequious, sycophantic fool of himself, Modi now realizes, oh my God, our oil supply is now cut off. We got to have oil. We got to have liquid natural gas. Turns back to Russia. And, the United States reversed itself. Instead of saying, oh, you got to follow all of these sanctions and against Russia, they say, oh, we're removing the sanctions so Russia can now sell oil. And Russia's told India, hey, great, welcome back. Happy to help you. But you remember that discount? We used to give you like a $3 or $4 per barrel discount. And so instead of paying $59, you're paying $55. Well, now the cost is up to $85 a barrel, and you're going to have to pay a $5 premium. Now, I guarantee you, if India had not gone to Israel, had not basically betrayed BRICS, Russia would have made them a deal. They would have said, hey, the price of oil is way up, but we're not going to make you pay full price. So India's paying a price for this, and that's where it's starting to spill over. But what are the Philippines going to do? They're dependent. 94% of their oil comes out of the Persian Gulf, and despite Trump's vows that they're going to open this Strait of Hormuz, I don't see how, because it's not like Iran sitting out there with a line of boats saying, you got to stop. You're not going to pass us. They put the word out. Anybody tries to go through here, we're going to blow them out of the water, which they have been doing.
I think the people, those people, Russia haters and Iran haters in the United States, they're so much confused. They don't know what to do. Lindsey Graham came out and said to Israel, he said to our friends in Israel, don't attack. My advice would be not to attack oil facilities, because we want Iran in its entirety. We want all of Iran with all these resources. We cannot, How do you think, Larry, that they have a solution for what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz? Because French president, he came out, Macron, he says that France is planning a purely defensive mission to gradually reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Here is what he said, Larry.
Iran is playing the tit for tat game. You hit us in an area, we're going to hit you back. They've already hit the oil refineries in Bahrain and Kuwait. And, so we've never faced a situation like this in the history of the modern world since oil became a thing. The embargo that was self-imposed by OPEC as a way to put pressure on the West, where to say, okay, well, we're not going to let you have our oil. We're just going to sit on it. That's one thing. But this is literally, you're turning off the pumps and you're destroying product that once it's destroyed, you can't is not easily replaced. And nothing's coming out of the Gulf, or at least nothing for the rest of the world. Some ships bearing oil for China, they're allowed to leave. Iranian oil tankers, they've been allowed to leave. Now, if the West is embarked, okay, we're going to start attacking these tankers. Great. Iran will return the favor. It will destroy the other tankers. And it's going to send you, whatever you do to us, we're going to do to you, and we're going to do it worse.
Larry, two important, in my opinion, with this current situation in Iran figures, they have sent their congratulations to the new supreme leader of Iran. One of them was Aliyev, the president of Azerbaijan.
Oh, did he? I hadn't heard that. Yeah.
He sent, because he's Azeri, the new supreme leader of Iran is Azeri. He's one of the first leaders to send his congratulations to the new supreme leader. And we had the Russian president sending his message to the new leader. And here is what Vladimir Putin said. He said, at a time when Iran is confronting armed aggression, your tenure in this high position will undoubtedly require great courage and dedication. I am confident that you will honorably continue your father's work and unite the Iranian people in the face of severe trials. For my part, I would like to reaffirm our unwavering support for Iran and solidarity with our Iranian friends. Russia has been and will remain a reliable partner of Islamic Republic. And many people are out there, they're trying to say that Russia is not doing that much. But these sort of arguments, I think, when you look at what the Iranian officials are talking about, we had Arakchi, his last interview on MSNBC, he said, we are doing, the relationship between Iran and Russia has not been better than what it is today.
Yeah.
And the Russian president, the Russian officials saying the same, and the people outside feel that Russia is just leaving Iran alone. Your understanding of that?
Well, Russia's not going to seek a public confrontation with the United States, but it is going to provide extensive support to Iran. We saw it March 5th. So was that last Thursday? When Iran, the Gulf Cooperation Council, all the ambassadors showed up in Moscow. And basically they're supposed to talk about other things, but what they were really there for was to get Russians to stop Iran, get Iran, call them off. They're basically your boys, call them off. and Lavrov put on a masterclass in hard-nosed diplomacy. He started off by saying, man, the Russia's most heartfelt condolences to all of you who've suffered damage and losses in this. This is terrible. We're against it. But then he turned around and said, I don't recall any of you protesting the U.S. and Israel launching an unprovoked attack on Iran. You're concerned about what's happening to you now. Where were you when Iran was unlawfully attacked? And oh, by the way, I don't recall any of you saying one word about the death of those young girls that were killed by the United States. So, they got taken aback. And he said, I think Kuwait is talking about bringing a resolution to the UN Security Council where you're just going to condemn Iran. No, that doesn't fly. You're not being objective and truthful. I mean, it was sort of brutal. So Russia is backing. It's not just talking. I mean, it's taking substantive actions, and it had already provided attack helicopters to Iran to be used in the counterinsurgency in the event that the Kurds decided to try to launch a military operation. But I don't think that that's going to happen with the Kurds now. I think you got this phenomena underway that Iran is doing so much better militarily, despite, we're seeing all the videos, the bomb. Yeah, the U.S. is bombing, but Iran is still standing against what is supposedly the most powerful military in the world, who can do anything, and but it can't get the Strait of Hormuz open. And Iran's going to keep that closed. That is Iran's, I am convinced, its bargaining leverage. Now, I don't know if they're thinking the way I am, but if I'm them, when you come to negotiate an end to this war, one of the key things is that all sanctions against Iran must be lifted. All this effort to demonize Iran must stop, and U.S. troops got to be pulled out of the Persian Gulf. If not, we'll keep it closed. We will destroy your economy. Hey, if it goes up to $200 a barrel for Iran, so what? They subsidize the oil anyway, and they're still going to be able to sell enough that they'll get by. But the West can't handle it. Just here, in my community, we're south of Tampa. Price of gas has already gone up 50 cents in 1 week. So I was paying $2.50 a week ago to fill up yesterday, $3.04. Actually, it was more than $3.04 because I get I'm a member of what's called BJ's. It's a buyers club, so I get like a 25% discount on my gas. So the price of gas is going, and it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to go up. And all this is on the backside of the United States has lost 91,000 jobs in the report that came out on Friday. And so unemployment's ticking up. Inflation is ticking up, and this is going to further accelerate inflation. No, it's not going to be politically sustainable for Donald Trump. They keep thinking that they're going to wave a magic wand and Iran's going to have to do what the U.S. says. No. And the United States is not prepared physically beyond, we can use airstrikes, we can destroy infrastructure, we can turn it into Rome, we can turn it into Gaza. But actually, that's almost impossible for us because we don't have enough planes and bombs to do that. Iran is a big ass country. It's 4 times the size of Iraq, 3 times the size of Ukraine. And if you want to see what the limits of military power are, just look at what Russia has launched massive missile strikes, massive strikes with drones, massive strikes with glide bombs over the last 4 years. And they've caused significant destruction and loss of capability, but that hasn't weakened Ukraine to the point that Ukraine says, we surrender, we give up. That's where ground troops come in, and that's why, and Russia understands that they're gonna have to conquer it by taking territory. The other softens you up. Well, the United States isn't even prepared. I don't even think it's got the inventory to do that scale of military operation against Iran in terms of what Russia has done to Ukraine.
Larry, yesterday I talked with Ray, and his speculation on the attack on schoolgirls, it was that it doesn't, because right now it seems that they're arguing that some parts of, I don't know, IRGC or some armed forces were in that place 7 years ago, and all of that. That was the main source of miscalculation, all of that. But Ray brought up something different. He said that for every attack that they're planning, they have to update all of these targets. It's not just you go and bomb the places that you had some sort of information 10 years ago. You have to update before the mission is, before implementing the mission. And the other argument, his speculation was that someone deliberately put this target on the list of the American attacks because someone wanted the escalation between the United States and Iran. wanted to Iran to respond, in a manner that would escalate the whole war. What is your speculation on that?
Well, I disagree with that, just from the standpoint that why do you want Iran to escalate? you want Iran to surrender. You want Iran to de-escalate.
No, he said someone else. To my understanding, he said some Israeli agents in the Trump administration put that target in the list of the United States. In the list.
But again, so they put it in there, and the outcome is you're going to enrage the Iranian people. I said, if Israel and the United States, their goal is to defeat Iran and get Iran to have a regime change, the last thing you want to do is make them more angry and more resistant to changing regime. No, I put this as just stupid mistake, that laziness, that instead of if you I do not, no, it's not a matter of belief. I know, having seen it firsthand, that there is no process where a target is selected and then people say, okay, let's go back. Let's verify that this target is what we claim it is. And they say, well, no, we got this intel that says that this is an IRGC headquarters. They don't go back to look at, well, what was the source of that intel? Does the person that provided that intel, do they have a track record of telling the truth? There's not the vetting. And so we've seen that over and over throughout the years. And, Ray and I were talking yesterday, and I was reminding him that, every year there's a CIA fact book, a world fact book. And well, every year, like I was the Honduran analyst, they'd come around and say, okay, here are the fact books. Here's what we've got listed for Honduras. Just verify that it's still, more or less true and go on. I must confess, I didn't do deep dive research to verify every fact. I just sort of bureaucratic exercise, sign off on it and move along. I think there's an element of that going on here.
Pete Hegseth was asked in his interview on 60 Minutes that what does an unconditional surrender mean? He said it means that we are fighting to win. Can you translate that? What we are fighting to win? It means that you're going to continue fighting with Iran. What is the concept of winning at this particular time of conflict, which is a war of attrition, to my mind?
Well, the outlines of victory would be that the government in Iran would admit that the United States is in charge, that all the policies of Iran would be governed by what the United States tells it to do, and that the United States would have final say over who gets to be in the leadership position in Iran. That's victory, as far as the U.S. is concerned. Well, that ain't happening. The United States that may be what they want to happen, but to actually effect a military defeat on Iran to such an extent, we're not capable of that. And not capable of that in terms of our current force structure. Now, if the United States increases its army from, it's currently a little less than 500,000 men. Yeah, okay, if we increase that to 2 million, all right, and then, we start up major factories to produce weapons, we build up for war. Yeah, then maybe we might be able to defeat Iran at a great cost. Oh, at an enormous cost. But all of that assumes that Iran's not going to be taking its own steps to defend itself, to make it even more costly for us. There's no easy way to assemble a force and get into Iran these days. You try an amphibious landing, good luck with that. The opposition from drones and missiles would be such that most of the landing craft would be destroyed before they even got to shore. And where are you going to base the people? You're going to have all this army assemble up in Iraq, so that then it can try to invade on the ground into Iran. There's a lot of that, as I understand, I've not been there, but that border area with Iraq is very mountainous. That there's, as you're coming down sort of from the northwest to the southeast, you're trying to traverse very mountainous terrain, which is easy for a defending force to chew up an invading force. So, Hegseth, he's not a very smart person. And he does what he's told and says what he's supposed to say, but he's in over his head to such an extent that it's dangerous.
Larry, isn't that amazing? I have never thought that these Hezbollah in Iraq would be that much powerful and influential in the whole concept of war. So far, they were so good in fighting back.
Well, they had 12 years to hone their skills when the United States invaded back in 2003, and they fought back. The attack and killing Khamenei brought them into the fight. In fact, Ali Sistani, the leading Shia cleric, did call for a fatwa. And he announced a fatwa on Saturday, I believe, that all Shia have an obligation now to resist and punish the United States for its murder of the Ayatollah Khamenei.
Donald Trump was asked, Larry, with the time of Israel, he was asked whether Israel could continue the war against Iran even after the United States decides to halt its strikes. And Donald Trump refused to answer that. He said, I don't think it's going to be necessary. How do they have any sort of scenario that Israel being capable of fighting Iran without the United States? Because how long does the United States want to stay in the Persian Gulf?
Yeah,
So far, from what we've learned so far, each single day they have spent, the United States spent more than $1 billion.
And that's on top of the loss of $5 billion worth of radars.
And Israel, how about Israel? Because all the spending on the part of Israel that comes to the United States as well. It's not just Israel paying for all of that.
Yeah, no, they're financially dependent on the United States for that. And that's why I said the cascading effects from this dramatic rise in the price of oil, plus the cutoff of the supply of oil, this cutoff of the supply of liquid natural gas, means that the countries of Europe and many in Asia are going to be in real trouble, which means you're going to get a global recession. When the price of oil spiked in '73 after the Yom Kippur War, there was a temporary recession. Economic growth stopped or slowed or reversed. The same happened at the first early months in the special military operation in Ukraine. This time is different, though, because it's not someone voluntarily withholding supply. There is no supply. It's not, whatever is available to be shipped is not getting shipped. And the plants that are doing the production are having to shut off. And the liquid natural gas plant in Qatar is kaput. It's not operating right now. So this is going to create drop in trade. The maritime traffic's already being affected by not moving in and out of the Persian Gulf. And let's see what the Houthis do. What is that? Mandab al-Bab or Bab al-Mandab, the little strait that's there at the bottom of the Red Sea. If the Houthis decide to close that, which they very well could, then all of a sudden you've crippled the maritime traffic in the most significant maritime traffic in the world in that area. This is this is going to cascade into not only are Americans going to be paying higher prices, industries are going to be shutting down that depend upon some of that oil, and that means more people get laid off. Now, this is different, and people are trying to pretend, oh, no big deal, we got this in hand, we're winning, and we're not winning. But we keep telling ourselves that.
Does the United States, Donald Trump, particularly know what is going on in Israel right now? Because we don't know what is happening in Israel. No footages are coming out of Israel.
Why? Because, man, we're told, oh, we're kicking ass and taking names, man. Those we're shooting down 90% of the drones. Those Iranians can't touch us. Great, show us. Hey, if that's the case, I'd have the reporters from around the globe line here, guys. Let me show you. This is gonna be a great light show. You're gonna see how we're destroyed. That Iran is completely ineffective, but that's not the case. It's the exact opposite. In contrast, look at Iran. CNN wants to come in. Fine, here, come in, report. They don't have Persian censors walking around behind them saying, no, you can't say that. Don't film this. Listen, film it all. Show what the West is doing to the Iranian people. That they're not attacking military targets. They're attacking civilians. That's a definition of terrorism. So, it just you look at the fact that they're trying to shut down all these cameras, control what's posted on social media. TikTok used to be a source that you could go and see what was happening. No longer. Instagram is still operating, and X is. So, there's a little bit of information there.
Larry, who's gonna, be, if something happens, let's assume that finally Russia or China would bring some sort of sanity for the whole, this chaos that is happening right now. How do you see these Arab states in that sort of policy if they decide to do something about West Asia? What do they want from the United States, and what did they want from the United States, and what do they want as time goes by from the United States?
You mean the GCC?
Yeah, exactly. Because I see this war, it doesn't matter what would be the outcome. This war is somehow drastically changing the mind of the leadership in these countries, because the people were not happy about the leadership and the policies, particularly in the West Asia. But right now, the reality is hitting them. This is not just Gaza. This is their survival.
Yeah, well, they had counted on the U.S. security umbrella. The rainstorm has come and the umbrella doesn't work. It's got holes in it. So this war will eventually end, and I believe it will end in a negotiated settlement that will be to the benefit of Iran. I mean, Iran will have suffered terrible losses. I don't want to minimize that. But the United States is not going to be able to impose its will and the dictates. It's not going to be unconditional surrender. It's not going to be Ulysses S. Grant telling Robert E. Lee how things are going to be. It's not von Paulus sitting down with the Russians telling the Soviets telling them what they have to surrender. Just the opposite. Iran, by controlling the Strait of Hormuz, by using that as economic leverage, has now positioned itself that it's going to get. The West will be forced to give Iran what it wants if they hope to get the international economic system back up and running with oil flowing out of the Persian Gulf. And, frankly, with United Arab Emirates and Qatar being able to survive. Reports today that the king of Bahrain has already fled Bahrain. So we'll see what happens in Kuwait. The U.S. State Department has ordered the U.S. Embassy in Saudi Arabia closed. That's important. So again, the U.S. diplomatically is pulling out of the Persian Gulf. And if you pull out your diplomatic personnel, who do the Saudi leaders talk to? Russia's not pulling out. Russia's there to talk. And so they're going to see that not just Russia, China as well. Russia and China are the countries that have the ability to stay, and they've actually got the ability to protect those countries, not the United States. And in the future, it'll be protecting those countries against Israel, but that's, again, China and Russia have that capability. The United States politically can't do it because the different Zionists that are trying to run the show here control Trump.
Is there anybody in the United States asking Donald Trump, what is the gain, geopolitical gain or economic gain out of this sort of war on Iran? If the outcome would be, you've mentioned that Iran is getting hit by the United States, by the bombs. We all know that because of the footages. But Israel is getting the same way. And the United States has to reconstruct Israel, in my opinion, in the aftermath of this war. And the position of the United States would not be the same as it was before. And this brings a huge leverage on the part of Russia to the hand of Russians and Chinese, and even I would argue Iran. And are these questions important to the politicians in the United States?
Yeah, the political attitudes towards Israel are changing definitely, and not in a good way for Israel. Gavin Newsom, the other day, like 2 weeks ago, he was saying very conciliatory things about Israel. Not now. And there is, the social memes that are popping up about, make Israel great again at the expense of making America great again. The public opinion is moving against Israel. And the more Israel engages in attacks and attempts to suppress or punish people that are anti-Zionist, it's blowing back on them. I saw that over the weekend, Candace Owens had made a remark saying, encouraging American people, do not let your sons and daughters sign up to go into the military, to be used as cannon fodder for Israel. I agree with her 100%. Bill Ackman, who I'm also acquainted with, attacked Candace Owens as some vile anti-Semite and, being un-American, and said, shall I be prosecuted? Yeah. Candace challenged him, hey, come on my show. You can debate me on this. And the bottom line, Ackman's just a pussy. He's a billionaire, lots of money, thinks he's a tough guy, but he's not. He's afraid of Candace. Yeah. So the Zionist project is fortunately in real trouble. And once you get the Zionist nonsense out, where these settlers can go around and attack Palestinians who have inhabited territory for centuries, and then attack them to try to drive them out of their homes. Once those settlers are dealt with, then there is a chance for normality returning. But again, what has happened as a consequence of this war, the more the United States tries to punish Iran, the greater the damage to the international economic order and the U.S. ability to maintain dollar supremacy is evaporating.
Yeah, I would love to see the evidence of what does Netanyahu have on Donald Trump, that Donald Trump is getting somewhere so strange, because he's today in his interview with Times of Israel, he said he's begging for Netanyahu's pardon, to be pardoned by the president of Israel. Why is that so important for Donald Trump? Why Netanyahu is so important for Donald Trump?
Well, because Netanyahu's asked Trump to do that. And again, it may be, I can't rule out blackmail, that they do have damning material about Donald Trump related to Jeffrey Epstein. So, but Trump is so completely in the pocket of these Zionists that he is damaging America, and I tell you, the Republicans are going to pay a heavy price in November. The House of Representatives will be overwhelmingly Democrat, And I think that they've got a good chance to recapture the Senate, though, like in Texas, the Democrats there nominated a complete idiot to a guy he's politically weak, a little tiny man with a little, who embraces the whole transgender nonsense. People don't want that. What people want is to stop getting involved with endless wars overseas and to rebuild America and to have jobs and have a healthy economy. Trump's not delivering on that at all. And it's just going to get worse. They are in denial about how bad the situation is.
There was an article, Larry, in the Jerusalem Post mentioning that survivors testify. They're talking about MKs participated in sadistic sexual rituals involving minors. They're talking about mostly doctors, educators, police officers, and past and present members of the Knesset were involved in these abuses. Survivors saying that. And there is a huge scandal of the sort of Epstein going on in Israel as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tel Aviv is known as it's called one of the sex capitals of the world, and including lots of deviant sexual behavior. There really is it's a demonic, satanic cult that has nothing to do with they mask themselves, they hide behind Judaism, but actually do not believe in God, and they believe in these rituals which are designed to destroy innocence, destroy purity, and promote this occult knowledge. And so it's real, and it involves a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much for being with us today. Great pleasure.
Time flies. I can't say we're having, quote, fun,
yeah.
but we are in that Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times.